All right, so we're going to call this meeting to order at 6:33. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we're going to break to sign the warrants.
me in the corner and wouldn't stop talking my ear off. I'm like, go away. I gotta go.
Great.
Let's have coffee.
All right, I move that the Hamilton Regional School Committee adjourn into executive session for the purposes of conducting negotiations with the superintendent regarding 2018-2019 salary, executive session purpose number 2, discussing strategies relative to superintendent's contract, executive sessions purpose number 2, and considering the purchase of numbers 1, 3, and 5 Long Meadow Way, Hamilton, Mass. An executive session is necessary because discussion in open session may be detrimental to the school committee's negotiating position. Executive session purpose number 6, and return to open session. Need a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call. Stacy?
Roll
Affirmative.
call means you have to say yes.
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Carrie? Lauren, you feel like? Sure. All right.
His stomach is really bad.
Thanks. Okay, 8:07, we're back in open session. Excuse me, my pen. Now we're going to open the floor for any citizens' comments. Okey-doke. Nothing? All right, I don't have anything for the chair's report tonight. I know I forgot to do something today. So, Mike, superintendent's report.
Okay. First off, inform the committee I received notice from the Massachusetts School Building Authority that they have elected not to move the statement of interest from the district regarding the replacement of the Cutler School into the eligibility phase as part of the 2018 process. We are able to resubmit our statement of interest. The MSBA will be accepting statement of interest for 2019. I believe the window opens up middle of January and it goes through April 12th. So if we do decide we want to resubmit, we'll have to schedule another vote. I had a conversation with one of the directors from MSBA who informed me that we definitely demonstrated a need. However, those who were with me for the site visit, they describe a process where they identify schools of need and then they set their dollar amount that they have to spend and see how far that goes down the list, and we just didn't make the cut as far as what they had to spend. So she definitely encouraged me to resubmit as well.
So could it also work out, like if you have a expensive project, it would be harder because of the...
Possibly,
okay.
yeah. She described it. All right. On Monday, December 10th, I attended a roundtable meeting of superintendents from the North Shore and Merrimack Valley at Salem State University. And this meeting was hosted by Congressman Seth Moulton. Congressman Moulton is interested in hearing from school district leaders about the challenges that districts face in preparing our students with the knowledge and skills to allow them to contribute to a nation's economy and its democracy. We discussed the work that's ongoing in Massachusetts to revise the way state aid is calculated for local communities, the impact of federal funding on our local school budgets, and the increasing role of school districts as a clearinghouse for social services for students and families. Congressman Moulton expressed his willingness to carry our concerns forward, both to our state leaders and to Congress. And then finally, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Students are going to be dismissed at our regular time on Friday, December 21st. Schools will be closed from Monday, December 24th, and will reopen on Wednesday, January 2nd. So have a happy and safe New Year and a great holiday.
Okay.
All right.
All right, now we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Excuse me. We set to go. Does anyone want to pull anything? Buddy?
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee move forward with the consent agenda. There can be no changes.
Second?
All those in favor? Unanimous? Excuse me. All right, on to new business. First up, we have the Fall 2018 Athletic Team Recognition.
Okay, and I'm going to ask Athletic Director Craig Genualdo to come up and introduce the athletes and coaches that are here tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. We have some very special athletes in our audience. Many of the fall athletes that contributed to the success of our fall teams are on to the winter sports season. But we have 3 teams that stood out this fall, each having won league championships. We had football, which won their 2nd league title in a row and qualified for the playoffs for the 6th time in the last 8 years. We have girls cross country, which won the league title. I believe they won their 14th consecutive league championship. I could be wrong about that, but it's either 14 or 15. I can't count that high. And the other team that won a league title was our golf team. They've won the league title 4 of our last 5 years in the Cape Ann League. So certainly not only success this year, but as we get introduced to our seniors, we have to understand that they've had a legacy of success, not just a single season of brilliance. So we're Obviously, very grateful for all our teams. Wins and losses are not our top priority, but when a team is successful, having done it the right way, it is indicative of trying to do things the way that we like to do them and the way we want to do them and doing them well. So I'm going to introduce Coach Jim Pugh of the football program, veteran coach of the Cape Ann League. We're incredibly lucky to have him for 3 years now, and these seniors have really flourished under his guidance and tutelage. So he's going to introduce the football seniors that are here.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you for inviting us. One note, Jeremy Coffey has coached with us this year. This is his first year coaching. He's done an outstanding job. Someone from the community that you would all know. I'll introduce our five of our seniors are here tonight. And I will just quickly say that I've been around coaching a long time, and without a doubt, this senior class was the best class that I've ever worked with. You know, just their enthusiasm, their leadership, everything they did. They did well, and they were a disciplined group. So if they would stand up, Quinlan Kelly, Sam Weber, Henry Smith, Thomas Monahan, and our quarterback, Tom Brady. That would be Bill Whalen. Bill's going to say a few words, and thank you very much.
Hello. I just want to say thank you to my coaches, Coach Coffey and Coach Pugh. They've really done everything for me throughout this past year and throughout the past 3 years. Also, thank you to Mr. Genualdo. He's really done a lot for us. And thank you to all you guys for keeping our school in line and keeping everything in line. Just really means a lot that you guys put in a lot of work for us and to make sure we're all okay. So thank you.
Thank you. Our golf team, as I mentioned, won the league title for the 4th time in the last 5 years. Coach Corley's an assistant girls hockey coach at Bishop Fenwick. They have a game tonight. But I wanted to introduce to you 2 of our golf members, Justin Tremblay and Thomas Kane. You guys want to come up for a minute? Come on. There you go.
We'd just like to say thank you to the school committee for your support and to our coach, Corley, and Mr. Hoke. They've been really great to us, and we have the privilege of playing at Myopia almost every day after school, which is great, and we couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity we have to play golf every day. So thank you.
And do you gentlemen know that there are men and women throughout this country who would die for that opportunity to play on the course where the Masters was played? You know, so just always cherish that when you leave here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I introduce the young women of the girls cross country team, I think it's important to know that with Coach Pugh, who you've met, and Coach Sawyer, who's not here, the indoor track team has a meet this evening at against Essex Tech at St. John's. You know, one of my responsibilities as the AD is to be in charge of different sports, and football is a sport I have. I've been in the meetings when everyone in the room has wanted to nominate Coach Pugh for Coach of the Year, and he turns it down and gives it to a young coach who really deserves it. One time I asked Coach Sawyer how many times he's won Cape Ann League Coach of the Year, and he looked at me and rolled his eyes. I said 50, and he rolled his eyes. I said 60, and he rolled his eyes, and we stopped. He's like, I don't even know. He said they're all in a box somewhere. I can't even count. So our young men and women in our school are incredibly lucky to have such phenomenal coaches. Coach Corley won Coach of the Year again. I think it's like the 3rd time in a row. So just for the record, we're all incredibly grateful for them. I'd like to introduce Maddie Katz, senior girls cross country captain, to speak a little bit about her season. Their season.
Hi, we're senior captains Maddie Katz and Riley Folger, and we'd like to, we had a really great season this year. We had our 14th straight Cal Championship win, and we qualified for the All-State Championship. So we'd like to thank all of our coaches, Coach Sawyer, Karen, and our new coach, Coach Ryan, Mr. Genualdo, and also the school committee for all the work you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you're very busy and you have an agenda that's chock full of goodies to work on. We're incredibly grateful that you carved out some time for us. We always think it's important to get the kids up here, and we're grateful that you want to celebrate their successes, and we're grateful for all of your support. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Craig, and thank you everyone for coming. You know, I'm a graduate of Hamilton, one of myself, and it's really great. I take a lot of pride in the town and the schools especially, you know, and it's really nice to know that, you know, not only with all the academic success we have within this community, it's great to see actually all the success we have in, you know, sports and the arts as well. But, you know, congratulations to all of you guys. I hope you really enjoyed it, and, you know, thanks for making a fun year. And I got out to see a couple of games, and you know, it was great. So, you know, thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of for you seniors, the rest of your senior year. So it's gonna go by too quick.
Some of
Yeah,
them might be
well.
back.
Yeah.
Some of them might be back here
Not
for
the
another
seniors, I
record,
hope.
at another recognition.
Oh, all right.
Another,
That's all right.
yeah,
Multi-
another sport.
Another sport.
There's still 2 more seasons.
More seasons left.
Yeah.
I just thought you meant they were coming back for another year.
No, there's still 2 more seasons.
All right, that's my bad. So, thanks for coming.
You
I know
came
you
back.
guys might have some homework to do, so you can split if you want. And thus, we have a riveting budget discussion coming up.
They could stay and support their DECA members.
They could.
All right, so, no, because we have the advertising thing next.
Yeah.
That is my bad, 'cause I was actually- So we are gonna
Yes.
do the DECA presentation.
You guys can do it.
It's up to, it's fine with me.
Is there someone here to present about advertising, or are we just going to
Yes.
vote?
Lisa's here.
Oh,
We can do that
man,
first.
Lisa's still doing basketball in
So
this town.
I saw Mrs. Fibby with a program in her hand, so.
Yes, Lisa's doing it.
Excuse me.
He's up.
All right. This is the approval of the advertisement for boys and girls basketball programs. That really should have been-
Okay, hi, I'm Lisa Fibby. I'm the Hamilton Wenham Girls Basketball Booster President, and I'm just here to request to be able to advertise sponsorship, both on our roster and at our concession stand. So that's one request. I also have another request, but that's one of my requests, so.
That's for-
I think that, did you send the picture of the roster?
Yes.
Of the
Yeah.
program?
We have that, yeah.
We have that, okay.
And that's for boys and girls. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a new process to us, so,
Yep.
I mean,
Well, new since the fall.
just voting to the, excuse me.
Well, we did
New
it in
since the
fall.
fall.
So we're just gonna vote to accept it?
Just want to vote to approve it, yep.
Yeah, so someone wanna make the motion?
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve the advertising in the boys and girls basketball programs as in Exhibit F.
Second.
So, all those in favor? Unanimous? Great. Right, now, the DECA.
No, one more,
Oh,
so
I'm
we
sorry.
have one more request. We have a family donation, a family of one of our basketball players who would like to make a donation to go towards shooter shirts for each of the players on the team. And I would just need approval for that, because it would need to come through the district and then back into boosters to pay for the
It's the
shooter
temporary.
shirts.
What's a shooter shirt?
So like a warm-up shirt for the
Oh.
kids, and they would keep the shirts afterwards, so it would be a family donation.
And is that on here? That's
Yeah.
on
Actually,
here?
It's on
There was a
I,
letter.
Yeah,
donations.
and we'll vote that later in the meeting.
Oh, okay,
So
that's fine.
I don't,
You can hang around if you like.
you can hang around,
like
or you can just
Stay, watch the bus.
Watch
get it
on-
emailed tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that good? Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. How many years have you been involved in basketball, Lisa? Lisa, how many years have you been involved in basketball in town? 14. Yeah, thank you.
I thought it was 12, but.
I knew it was a long time.
All right, so now, the DECA students to update on program.
Yep, to give an update on the DECA program.
Okay.
Lauren Verge is going to take the lead.
She was so confident.
Is it easier just to use Apple TV? It should all be set up now. If you just,
We just tested it earlier, plugged in.
Oh.
Is it Bucher 1?
Let me tell you what it is. It's the, there should be a Bucher Rover.
Yeah.
There you go.
So hi, I'm Lauren Verge. I'm the vice president of our DECA club at the high school. And this is a picture of our officer team. We couldn't all be here tonight, but it's Lauren Verge, Emily Vanderwilden, Julia Putnam, Cam Geyer, Eli Leonard, Tyler Vesey, Valerie Wise, and Lily Waterman. So what exactly is DECA? It's a student organization to develop transferable skills for college and careers. It was formerly known as Distributive Education Clubs of America, but now it's simply known as DECA because we've kind of expanded past that definition. And over 200,000 high school DECA students are found across the world in 3,500 classrooms, and they're students from the United States, the U.S. territories, Canada, Germany, Mexico, China, and beyond, which is really cool. I've been lucky enough to go to the international conference the past 2 years, and it's been really cool to meet students from all over the world who are doing the same thing as me.
Hi, I'm Eli Leonard, one of the officers here today. So what's involved with DECA? Each member chooses at least 3 activities that fits them. In the chapter school activities, there's business speakers that will come into the high school and talk about real-world activities, skill workshops, leadership training, community service, working in the general store, which we have in the high school, open after school. We also have, during the state activities, we have competition where students compete at the district level, state level, and national level. We also have leadership training and networking with students and older adults. We also have national activities, which include competition, leadership training, networking, and opportunities for possible scholarships. Thank you.
My name is Valerie Wise, also an officer. So how DECA helps students? DECA helps students build transferable skills for the future. So an example I like to say for this one is we are all definitely better at public speaking now because, for example, in a competition setting, we get to speak one-on-one with a judge, and that also helps build self-esteem and confidence. And we also get to experience leadership. So we are chapter officers, so we get to help out a lot in the community and on the school level. And we also get to practice community service. So for example, this year we've taken on movements such as with breast cancer awareness with the Susan G. Komen Foundation and also ALS. And we also have our social media handles here on Twitter and Instagram.
Hi, I'm Julia Putnam. So DECA this past year, it was really successful. We had 90 at our District Career Development Conference, which was at Merrimack College. We had 45 at the State Career Development Conference, which was in Boston. And in Atlanta, Georgia, we had 15 at ICDC. Overall, we earned 34 district trophies and plaques, 14 state trophies, plaques, and medallions, and 1 international first place medallion, which was really cool for their role play by John Farnham and Tom Kane. And this year we have grown to 190 members, which is approximately a third of our school, which is really cool.
Okay. Hi, I'm Emily Vanderwilden. I'm also another officer. Another service that DECA provides is the DECA Speaker Series, and I'm actually in charge of running those events. So we contact our professional members or other members of the relative community, and 2 of our really big ones that we had this year was Bob Sweeney, who's a retired professional Bruins hockey player, and he came and talked to the students about his experience in college in the NHL and wanting to give back to the Bruins and his community. And then our second big speaker was Sally Sherman, who's a recruitment manager for Weston and Sampson. And she was really beneficial to our students because she showed what a proper resume should look like and techniques for how to interview for jobs. And these speaker series are open to all students during the year. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely want to recognize Laura Wheeler, who's the advisor for the DECA Club. I got to witness this a couple of weeks ago. It's amazing when you have to have a club meeting in the high school auditorium.
Yeah.
Just really cool. So thanks, Laura, for all the work you've done in getting this program going.
So I just wanted to say thank you. I just think it's important where, especially with an organization like this, that the students really represent what's really happening. And it is really impressive that we've grown to 190 students, but really that's really due to the leadership of the students who've gotten involved. For example, I think Lauren is the one who, when I first started the program 2 school years ago, I just put up a flyer and said, there's a new program, you don't know what it is, but I need leaders. And of course, Lauren just popped right in, and everyone else kind of came after that. But, there's a real need to teach these 21st century skills in a way that gets them outside of the walls of our building. And the reason why we do so well is because of the work that's done in the classrooms. It really is about the transferable skills they're learning in every other class, every other place, including on the sports fields and everywhere else. So we're just very happy for your support, and thank you, Dr. Harvey, for bringing this program here. So thank you so much.
Great. I guess you can go.
These guys go, and we're going to go up there. All right.
My day's got 6 hours left in it.
Oh, that feels good. Where's that air coming from? It feels good.
Does not feel good, and it's coming from right over the store.
I feel cold air. Feels good.
Guys ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Kickoff for the FY 2020 Hamilton Wenham Regional School District budget. So as we work through the process and show you where we are in our process, and we started back in October with certifying our prior year's excess and deficiency, filing our October 1 financial reports with the state, also determining our resident student enrollments, again with the report that we have to do to the Department of Education, and then developing our internal budget tools. In November, beginning of November, we then kick off the budget process internally. We distribute our kickoff memos to our principals and department heads. They will do an extensive review of their own area of the budget, look at identifying critical priorities. We have input in that from the entire leadership team. And then also part of the work in November was to update our 5-year capital plan. In December, we had our finance committee, joint finance committee and boards of selectmen's meetings. We, again, did an assessment of our critical priorities that were identified by our principals and department heads back in November. We looked at our fixed costs, we looked at our variable costs, again, updating that 5-year capital plan, and then finally putting together a recommended budget. And that's where we are tonight. It's at the last slide in December. And then for the next 8 weeks, roughly, we'll be talking about some of the different components of that budget in January and February, coming to a vote February 13th, I believe is the date, that we have to have a final budget voted for town meeting. And then in March, our treasurer will certify those numbers to town meeting, and in April, first weekend in April, we'll have Hamilton and Wenham town meetings. All along, as this process is happening, we have some ongoing pieces that we're looking at. First is our health insurance. That's negotiated on an annual basis. And so we look at that. We work with our healthcare consultant and do some trying to get that number fixed as quickly as we possible. We're in the process of still collective bargaining negotiations with 2 of our unions. Actually, for the current year, for the secretaries and the custodians, they're open contracts right now. They both expired back at the end of August. And then we also are looking at our special education costs all the way through this process. And so those are pieces that are constantly, moving parts that we're dealing with as we're trying to land this plane and put together a budget.
Could I just add?
Sure.
Kind of emphasize, could you just go back to, so emphasize the red boxes. So the black boxes are kind of very much internal in terms of administrative functions, all kind of reaching a pinnacle, which is tonight, right? And that's that last bullet in the box to the right, finalize recommendation. So the key word is recommendation. So the way the process goes is that we all work together from an administrative perspective. I work with Mike. We develop a recommendation, and that starts the process of communication and developing the final budget for adoption by the school committee. So this is a collaborative process. This is back and forth, right? So this isn't the budget. This is our recommendation. So it should take shape over the next 8 weeks with
Deliberation is really the word I keep thinking
so
of.
we're gonna cover a lot of information over the next 4 or 5 meetings, and by the end of January, beginning of February, the expectation is that you'll have a pretty good grasp and understanding of what the recommendation is, what the components are that make up the recommendation, and then what we're looking for from the committee is your own touch. So if you agree with our recommendation, great. Right, we'll move that forward. If you don't, if there's things that you want to recommend be changed, that's part of the process. So it is a process. It's a very deliberate process. It spans the course of almost 6 months. So now we begin the process of getting you guys into the details and asking for your input. This is a two-way conversation that will lead throughout the next 6 weeks.
Great. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. So for the FY20 budget, superintendent's budget recommendation, we again started with a level service budget. This is continuation of the current services, activities, and programs of the district. We also took some of the feedback that we've been hearing for the last several months about a couple of different pieces, especially around the OPEB trust fund. As we know, the accounting standards have changed. This now is, OPEB is listed as a liability on our books. We feel it's important to start addressing that in a real meaningful way. The other piece, that we're also proposing as part of this recommendation is the school resource officer position. It's something that as a high school principal, I thought was an integral part of my leadership team. As I kind of say in really plain terms, we would never have an assembly of people in this town, of over 1,000 people in this town, without having a detail officer on duty. Yet we do it every day in all of our schools in the district. So again, so those are the two add-ons that we're proposing in addition to the level service budget. And for FY20, that level service, OPEB, and the school resource officer position translates into an increase of our gross operating expenses of $1.9 million, or 6.19% versus the FY19 budget. So here are the assumptions that we made for level service. We look at salaries. We've incorporated the COLA increase reflected in the new teacher's contract, and we have proposed placeholders for the other personnel, those two other bargaining agreements, and then for other people who are not on those, covered by those 3 employment contracts. We incorporate all other salary obligations, steps, and degree changes. We decreased our elementary teacher headcount by 1.0, or $58,000. We have a bubble right now in grade 5, and so when that group of students moves up into grade 6, we have the staff to cover them, and so we'll no longer need that, what is it, 2, 4, 6, the 7th, 5th grade teacher. We've incorporated our staff replacement savings of $157,000. We have 5 people who have declared their intent to retire at the end of this year. They had to do that by the end of November. And then we've level funded all of our grants as compared to FY19. In terms of operating, we looked at no new services or programs. We've actually reduced our capital expenses to $122,000. That's down from $129,000, $210,000, and $312,000 in our last 3 years. And the exceptions that we have to level funding are the notable ones are we're looking at as we're looking at a 7.6% increase in our health care, or $198,000. We're looking at our out-of-district tuition costs increasing about by 31.2%, or $897,000. OPEB increasing 100%. It's a new item, or $250,000. And the school resource officer increasing by 100%, or $73,000. One of the other pieces that's going to play into how these numbers look that we have to keep in mind is that there's going to be a change to our debt service expense this year. The middle school, high school project has been paid off, and therefore that debt expense of $711,000 is coming off the books. We have increased our debt expense $153,000 in anticipation of bonding the winter sprinkler project. That's going to be done this summer. So we made sure we accounted for those in our assumptions on the level service budget.
Yeah. So now we're going to kind of drill down into some of the detail. So this first schedule breaks that $2.1 million gross expense increase into the primary drivers, just to so you can grasp it a little bit better. So the value of all of the COLAs and the steps in terms of gross numbers was $798,000. We had 21 teacher advancement requests that were valued at $92,000. As Mike mentioned earlier, we have an estimate from our Director of Special Ed for 52 placements for next year versus 42 placements in the current year budget. And we talked a little bit about that trend during the last meeting when we talked about the forecast. So the budget for FY20 is just shy of $897,000 increased budget to budget for out-of-district placements. OPEB increasing by $250,000. Yes?
Do we have any reason for the out-of-district tuition uprise? I mean, do we just simply have more of them?
Yeah,
or?
So we've got a macro level presentation for tonight, and when we come back from break on the 2nd, we've got a number of very detailed presentations to take you through. Given the agenda for tonight, we were kind of pressed, so we're going to have Stacy Busick come in and give a very, very detailed presentation to talk about that number. I mean, that's almost half of our increase.
Yeah.
So we got to get into the details, and we owe it to the community and the school committee to drill into the drivers there. I'm going to give a really detailed presentation on the 2nd about OPEB. I've spent the better part of 5 months reviewing legal aspects. I've conducted a qualification-based review of a number of advisors. I've got an advisor recommendation. I've worked with our actuaries to prepare a 30-year funding plan of our OPEB. And this $250,000 is the first contribution, or the first proposed contribution of 30 into that plan. I'll go over those details with the committee on the 2nd. And then we've got the 2 police chiefs scheduled to come in and talk about school resource officer. Chief Stevens is going to talk about the Green Meadows host community agreement, and then we can field questions. If you recall, we first presented the concept of school resource officer to the committee back in January of 2015. We talked about it again in April of 2017, and Mike and I felt it was the time for us to formally put it into the recommendation for consideration by the committee. So OPEB, again, $250K. It's very much part of a detailed funding plan. Again, I'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. School resource officer, we got this number from Chief Stevens, $73,000 placeholder. Essex Retirement Pension Fund increasing by a little over $78K. That's a number that we get from the PERAC and the Essex Retirement Pension Fund itself. So it's a fixed cost. In-district transportation increasing by $63,000. Our regular bus transportation agreement or contract expires this June. We'll put the contract out for bid in the February-March timeframe. And what I've got in the budget for now is a placeholder. I've done some research around current market rates, and we've got a placeholder in our budget for our budget to reflect the lower end of the current market rates for costs associated with, you know, what bus companies are charging on a per day basis in local communities. Insurance premiums, consulted with our account rep. Two drivers behind this $18,000 increase. We've got workman's comp increasing by approximately 10%. And then our property and liability increasing by approximately 5%. So I've got placeholders in there. We won't know for sure until, you know, the June, July timeframe. Healthcare costs placeholder. So this $198,000 increase is made up of two pieces. It's like a rate volume analysis. So from a rate perspective, I have a 6% placeholder in for active plan premium increases. And then we've seen an increase in the number of our retiree enrollees. So I've reflected that into this $198,000 number. So if you recall Mike's mentioning of healthcare costs a few minutes ago, it was the blended increase is about 7.6%.
How come workman's comp went up so much, 10%? Is that, was there any reason? Did we have some?
We have two active claims.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was curious, if
One
there was some
fairly
active.
sizable active claim.
Okay.
Yeah, so that
That's why I was wondering
affects
that,
the
if
rates.
that's what was
Right.
going on.
So, my trusty little thing here. So, we've got a couple of embedded decreases into our, in our budget. We've reflected 1.0 decrease, as Mike mentioned, at the elementary level, in the 5th grade bubble. So we've incorporated a reduction for that salary of $58,541. And then, as we've discussed many times over the years, so when we have staff retire that are at the higher end of the salary scale, from a budget perspective, we incorporate the salary of the replacements at Master Step 5. So for those 5 retirees, replacing them at Master Step 5, which is at $58,541, we save, at least from a budget perspective, $157,611. So net, all of our other costs, everything else that isn't reflected on this schedule, are being reduced by $75,000. So that's primarily driven by two things. It's driven by a fairly substantial reduction in our instructional materials. If you recall, in the last year, for the current year, we incorporated roughly $140,000 for math resources. So we've expended that money. We don't need it again. So that comes out of the budget, right? And then we recently completed the Green Communities building automation system upgrade up at the high school, middle school campus that we talked about months ago. That was a huge success, and I'll update you on that project in the next couple of weeks. We're anticipating huge savings from a utilities cost perspective, so I've reflected, I think, $25,000 worth of utility cost savings for FY20 in the budget.
Before you move on the out-of-district tuitions, I thought 2 weeks, our last meeting, you said it was like half that for out-of-district placement. It seems like it doubled from last meeting.
This year.
So we're talking about two different things, right,
Yeah.
Stacy? So what we talked about at the last meeting was a
Yep.
forecast of the current year.
Okay.
Right, so that's FY19. What we're talking about right now
Is the
is a
20.
budget for FY20. The two things can be different, and they are.
Yeah, because the last time you were talking about 48 placements, and now you're talking about 52, so we're anticipating 4 additional placements.
Correct.
That will probably happen this year, if we're going to budget for next year.
I don't know the timing,
Yeah.
but like I said, Stacy will be here and she can talk in detail of the number. So this is another kind of look at our expenses. What you have here is all of our major expense categories, kind of starting at the largest, working its way down to kind of the smallest major categories, and the change from year to year. So we just talked a lot about salaries, which is the top line. You can see that our all-in salaries are just shy of $21.5 million versus a current year budget in FY19 of $20.8 million. So the change on a from a gross perspective is $675,000 or 3.2%. The next largest category, as we just discussed, is out-of-district tuition costs. That's growing from $2.9 million in round numbers to $3.8 million, an increase of $900K or 31%. Healthcare costs increasing by 7.6%. Essex retirement by $78,000 or 8.6%. We're budgeting facilities, maintenance and custodial costs, a decrease of $15,000 on a year-to-year budget basis. And basically the difference there is we've got 3 leased vehicles. The lease is coming to a term at the end of the current fiscal year, and we have the option to buy each of the 3 vehicles for $1. So I wanted to reflect the lease cost savings in the budget. I skipped the sorry. Utilities, you can see the $24,000 that we budgeted. Again, that's at the high school, and it relates to both gas and electric costs, savings associated with the BAS project. Technology, budgeting a very modest increase from year to year, less than 1%. Special education transportation is
How many people are in technology?
How many people? So we have Alan, the director, and 1, 2, 4 staff.
But this.
5 staff.
These are non-salary
But
expenses.
this line is staff, not people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was answering the question.
Yeah.
No, I was asking.
I just, yeah.
So this is not, the technology line is non-salary stuff.
Yeah, I see that, but
All
I'm
of
just
the salaries
curious
are
what that was.
Special education transportation is made up of 2 pieces. So special education transportation, so we have special education transportation within the district, and SALTA provides that service vis-a-vis a bus. And then we have special education transportation for all of the individual out-of-district placements. These numbers incorporate both pieces. The increase is driven by 2 different factors. So the in-district with our bus vendor, I've increased at the same rate that I talked about a little bit earlier. The out-of-district, I increased at 3%.
So the 639, 669 includes in-district and out-of-district transportation?
Special ed transportation.
Yeah, yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In contrast, Michelle, to the 3 or 4 lines above.
Yeah,
this
that's
right
where the
here,
bus is, yeah.
These are the big yellow buses.
Yep.
And this is the contract that's expiring at the end of June, being put out to bid in February, March. And my estimate for what the new daily rate might be,
Yep.
from a conservative perspective, that I'm recommending we budget for FY20. I don't have a crystal ball, but market indicators show that we could see an increase in our new contract. Substitute teachers, fringe, so this is simply a byproduct of a calculation for Medicare and Social Security tax, which is calculated off of our salaries. So there's nothing we really can do about that. Substitute teachers flat. School material supplies and textbooks, that big number that I talked about a few minutes ago, the negative number, down 110,000 year over year. Athletics, so this is a combination of a number of factors. So it says non-salary, but that's non-salary that relates to the athletic director's office. So his salary and his assistant salary is, any impact is out of that line. The coaches are in the line. So that's an increase for all of our coaches, and then an increase for all of our, what I'll call, transportation and contracted services categories, and that's the net result. District insurance we talked about, OPEB we talked about, and school resource officer we talked about, both 100% increases. So everything else, when you really strip it down into those major categories, there's $1 million left in all the other small categories, and we budgeted that flat year over year. Okay, so I'm going to work my way up to what we refer to as our kind of our P&L, even though it's not really a P&L. So what we're going to talk about here are our offsets. So I want you to focus on this middle section, if you wouldn't mind. So this first line that we'll focus on is school choice. And you can see that I'm showing an increase of $120,000. So, Peter, for your benefit, I know this is your first budget cycle. So we aggregate our gross expenses, right, which is the schedule that I just talked about. And then we have offsets, which reduce those gross expenses to net expenses. So school choices is our second largest offset. It's not a revenue source, but it's an offset against a major expense category. So here I'm budgeting, or suggesting we budget $385,000 for school choice reimbursement. In the current year, we budgeted 53 choice students. We expanded, after we finalized the budget, we expanded into the middle school, right, which net resulted in more students. So we have 77 students now, 77 choice students. So I've taken that current actual for FY19 and simply extended it into FY20. So I've got 77 students at 5K, and which increases our offset, which reduces our gross expenses. Preschool tuition I've kept flat. It's pretty much been consistent from year to year to year. We use those dollars, those tuition dollars, to offset the costs of one of our preschool teachers and 4 of our preschool teaching assistants. It helps fund that program. And then our largest offset category is circuit breaker. So if you think about circuit breakers as your special education cost category increases, it's very likely that your circuit breaker reimbursement will increase too. So I've increased our net claim to, I think, roughly $1.35 million and incorporated a reimbursement rate at 70%. I think this past year we get 72%, but that was a bit of a struggle. So from a conservative perspective, a 70% reimbursement rate, which increases the offset by roughly $81,000. So the net impact to our offsets is an increase of just shy of $201,000, which will again reduce our gross operating expenses by that amount. Okay, so here we are, we kind of pull it all together, right? So this top section is, first line is our general operating expenses, gross before offsets. So we're showing an increase, as Mike mentioned earlier, of $2.176 million or 6.58%. We're increasing our offsets principally in those 2 categories, choice and circuit breaker, by the $201K, which nets a result, an increase in our general operating expenses after offsets of 1.975 million, or 6.2%. The debt service is reduced significantly. Just remember that this debt service line and this debt service reimbursement line are tied together, right? That was a reimbursement of $1.1 million that we got annually from the MSBA in connection with the high school, middle school construction project, which will be paid off in May of 2019. The expense and the reimbursement will go away. So we backed out the expense of roughly $1.8 million for the high school, middle school project. Then I added in $153,000 for the Winthrop project, which is it's a 7-year ban plan with a principal pay down. So it doesn't assume a bond because we've got a lot of things going on from a capital perspective. Legally, you can have a ban open for 10 years. And so this is the approach that I'm considering at this point until we know a little bit more from a capital perspective. So 7-year ban plan, principal pay down with interest, $153K. Okay, so funding sources.
Jeff, sorry, what's left in there then? Right, so 153, 398.
So you've got
140.
You've got the capital projects from the summer of 2013.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Cutler's a Cutler boiler from before you guys were here.
Yeah. I see. Okay.
So it's
That's curious.
It's a bunch of smaller things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But in the detailed packet, I show a breakdown of all the elements and the associated calculations.
Okay. Thank you.
And is that packet available to us right now?
It is. It's online on the in my section on the website.
Oh, the one from last year?
No, I've got it in there for this year. I'll send you a link tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay, so funding sources. So a lot of this.
But by this year, you mean this fiscal year, not this budget fiscal year?
This budget.
Is in, it's on the website, a detailed packet.
Yep, and I'll send you a link tomorrow.
Okay.
It's not in the packet.
No, I hear what you're saying. There is information on the website that was not provided to us that we have to go there to get.
But you'll send us a link?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
As I have for the last 6 years. That's been the approach. So, funding sources, I very much rely on the cherry sheet for this, and that's always been the conservative approach. So, I pulled the Chapter 70 number right off the cherry sheet. We talked about the debt service reimbursement going away. The transportation reimbursement off the cherry sheet. The Medicaid reimbursement, increasing by 20,000 to 175,000. That's my doing. We've had a run rate around 170 to 180K for the last 3 years. I'm comfortable bringing it to this level, particularly in light of the increase in special ed costs. And then let me bounce to excess and deficiency. So we submitted our certified E&D to the DOR on October 4th. I still haven't heard back. But y'all have a policy that says anything above the 3% of the succeeding year's budget will be put here. So this is the number. It can change pending certification from the DOR, but this is the number that we've asked for certification. We haven't heard a peep from them yet. So the net result of all that, increases in our gross expenses, reduced by our offsets, reduction in our total debt service expense is a net assessment increase of $1.457 million, or a little over 5%. And then we follow the regional agreement prescription for calculating net assessment, and that yields an increase for Hamilton of $762,970, or 4.1%, and an increase to Wenham of $694,643, or 6.9%. Let me just mention again that we've seen a shift in that 3-year enrollment calculation, right? You've heard about this earlier in the process. The value of that shift for this budget is $170K, shifting from Hamilton to Wenham. So that $170K shift is embedded in those numbers. Over the course of the last 5 years, about $1.5 million has shifted because of that 3-year resident enrollment calculation being applied to the budget has shifted from Hamilton to Wenham over that time. So I'm going to stop there and see if you guys have any questions as it relates to at the real high level. Again, at the next meeting, we're going to really start to drill down into some of the detail.
On the school resource officer, will you go into more information? Because, I mean, I was hearing that Hamilton or the Patton estate was going to pay for the school resource officer, possibly?
So at the next meeting, we've got the 2 chiefs coming in.
Okay.
And they're both going to talk about the importance of the school resource officer function. And Chief Stevens is going to talk specifically about the host community agreement with Green Meadow. You know, Mike and I are somewhat familiar with it, and you know, we came to the conclusion that our recommendation, we wanted to include a school resource officer in our recommendation effective July 1st, 2019. And it wasn't crystal clear that the Green Meadows operation would be up and running, producing revenue, and being able to fund the terms of the host community agreement for next year. So we wanted to incorporate the function and the associated costs into our operating budget until that took effect.
Okay.
But Chief Stevens can.
Chief Stevens, Sean Farrell, and Scott Mattern are coming the 2nd to talk to that exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard rumblings, let's put it that way.
We've all heard a lot.
Yeah, so that's what I'd like to know, what's going on, and
We've heard a lot, we've read a lot. It wasn't necessarily crystal clear to us. We both felt very, very strongly about incorporating it into the recommendation. We've been talking about it for 4 years, and we felt it was time.
Yep.
It's now the committee's time to consider our recommendation
Yep.
and decide one way or another.
So is Chief Perkins coming also? You said the
Yeah.
police chiefs. Okay,
Yep.
I didn't hear that.
But Chief Stevens, they're both coming to talk about the school resource officer concept and support the concept as they have in the past. And then Chief Stevens will talk specifically about Green Meadows.
okay.
So on this thing that you were calling the sort of P&L thing, it would be my request that instead of having in FY18 the budgeted amounts, that we see the actual amounts, because that helps us understand where the next year's numbers are.
So we've had this conversation since we've known each other.
Correct, we have.
Yeah, and the last time was that we had too much on the sheet. So I have all the information, whatever you guys want, I'm happy to provide it. I have all the actuals from all the prior years.
If you replace that one column with the actuals, then we would be able to see what the actual was, what the budgeted is for this year, and then the next year.
Okay.
It wouldn't add anything. I don't know if it will be informative or not, because I don't know what it is.
No problem.
On the out-of-district placement, if, I know Stacy's coming, right? If we can get some more information of like the increase, where it's coming from, and what is our, I don't want to say the word kickback, but where do we fight it, or I'm just trying to figure out where this is all coming from, because we've been killed right now with out-of-district placement, as you know, and I guess I'm trying to see a story behind it, what's going on.
So we've got her coming in on the 2nd, right? And she's going to talk about all those things. Mike's met with her to talk about the things that he wants included in the presentation. An hour with her today, talking about the things that I think are important for the community and the committee to hear about on the 2nd. She's going to she's going to present that information and drill down into it so that we can better understand the drivers behind the trend.
Yep.
So over the past 5 years, our Our number of placements has increased by 100%. They've gone from 26 to 52 projected for next year. Our tuition costs have increased by 128% in that same time frame. So we've seen a meaningful trend, right, emerge. It's not unique to the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District. So, and Stacy's going to talk about that too. So we're going to give her the opportunity to drill
Yeah.
down into the details and then answer your question.
Because I see our budget Wenham's taking a huge hit, and I know Wenham's going to be looking at things because our tax assessment is going up, and 40% of that going up is from the schools. And so they're going to be looking at this budget, and, you know, this is, a level budget. I'm for the education, doing what's best, but at the same time, trying to be mindful of everybody's monies, because, you know, if you go to the very beginning, it was 6.9% as level service budget, but then it comes out to be about 5.1%, correct?
Yep.
So I'm just saying that I think Wenham's going to be having might have an override. I don't know for sure, but I'm just saying, I know last year they were struggling to try and get the budget to balance, and I just don't see how things have changed drastically for things to change otherwise, that there might be an override. I don't know. I'm just saying that we need to be really mindful and figure out when we're looking at our budget and what are asked for.
Having been in the 4th month of the process, so we're going to take you through the details, do our best to answer your questions. Out-of-district placement costs they're not variable, right? You can't say, I don't like this, you got to take it out of the budget, right? They're a fixed cost and the reality of doing business.
Yeah.
So.
No, I totally understand, and some of the stuff, you know, I guess I feel like we're starting for the school committee to see the budget in December is just, for me, it doesn't sit well. I wish I had more information sooner to look at things. And I'm one who likes to get into the detail of everything.
So the next meeting we have, we're going to have like another presentation, a presentation from Stacy, and then the next meeting is when we're voting the tentative budget. Is that correct?
No. So the statute requires that we vote a tentative.
All right.
No, it's the regional agreement.
The regional agreement requires that we vote, adopt a tentative at the next meeting.
It just seems like we're not,
But that
we're
doesn't
not
mean
getting
it
a
has
lot of information. I'm also confused about where our input would come if we're actually voting that tentative budget. So it's going to come after we vote some tentative budget? That's where our input's going to come?
Tentative budget doesn't mean final recommendation. It's
know what it means.
a
I know
meaningless
what it means. It means
gesture
that's what the
at this
town starts
point.
baking into their budget. That's
Yeah,
what it
they
means.
see it, and I haven't seen a budget in the years that I've
Last year it
lived here.
changed.
Last year was the first time it really changed, but for the most part, when a superintendent's tentative budget comes, there's not much change from that.
That's because usually
Deviation.
we don't offer
That's up to
much
the committee,
change.
right? So that's
But we
the
don't
That
have a
was
lot
my-
to say, we're supposed to vote
That
it
was
in
my
before that.
question. My question
We
was
don't
very
usually
simply,
offer much input.
when would we have input into changing the budget? And the answer is after we vote the tentative budget, unless we do it at the next meeting.
You can have input into the budget at any point, beginning right now.
Yeah.
Actually,
So
beginning
between
Friday.
now and February 13th, I think that's the time frame that the committee has an opportunity to weigh in.
My input would be that this is not going to fly. Because it's too much. And I don't know where the cuts can come, but I would really ask that we think about that. You know, I don't know where they would come from.
I agree. I guess that's what I was starting, and I guess I didn't quite say it clear enough, but I just don't see this as going to fly.
So we're looking for direction throughout the process from the committee as the majority of the committee. So.
I mean, yeah, you can't, I don't think it's entirely fair to sort of say it's too high and then sort of leave it at that, though, right? If we're saying level service, no OPEB, no SRO, that's something else, right? We're giving Mike and Jeff direction on what we think is too high.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some fixed costs. We can't just say, you know, as you just said, we can't say no out
Well,
of
I'd like to
district
see the,
transportation.
special education budget drop. I mean, that's just kind of killing us.
So we all, but like,
But we
that's not
can
up
and
to-
figure
that's
out
not
if
the-
there's
Well-
way, or to see if maybe like,
Maybe we need to start taking some to court and seeing if we can win some instead of settling. I mean, that's
or
a decision that has
you
to be
know?
made at their level, but.
We have today, we have today. I mean, those aren't gonna go away.
Right. But, you know, yeah, if that's the direction you would say, I would say we shouldn't pay for the school resource officer. Many school districts either have that paid for by their town or towns, or they at least share that cost. And for us to be paying for it outright, I'm gonna say no. I'm also gonna say we probably can't afford to put in the amount that we should put into OPEB because we can't afford it.
There is a
That's the
thing.
process.
That's, I mean,
Yeah.
we can't afford that. I am concerned that we've decreased our capital, and I want to understand that, because I don't want to be
'Cause we
putting
can't
off
afford it.
things that we should be investing in. And I know that, like, last year, we had like several technology things on that list. Technology should be part of our operating budget. It's something that's not, some technology things, like classroom computers and iPads and things like that. And
So we have $1 million technology
Yeah.
budget, right? And
Yeah.
we've got a very long and growing list of capital projects that we've been talking about for almost 5 years now. So, you know, I encourage, beginning at the next meeting, I've provided a copy of that updated list. I encourage us all to start talking about what we're gonna do about those things.
Yeah.
Because
There's an
you can't have
incoming,
your cake and eat it too, right? So
there's
we've
a,
gotta come up with a strategy to address, prioritize, and then address.
there's
I'd
a
love to
thing
still
with
see an
OPEB
IT plan
coming
too.
up.
That's one of the things that goes into our expense, so we know what's happening year after year, which, as you know, I've asked for 5 years now. An IT plan. I mean, that's part of the, I think, the budget process, and maybe, I mean, like some of the areas, maybe even like figuring out the non-union employees, maybe going to 2% raises, just trying to figure out where we can save money.
There's a thing coming with OPEB, if I'm not mistaken. The liability starts to matter in here somewhere.
It already does.
See, I knew there was a change
But
coming.
it doesn't,
Changed.
doesn't matter. It's
standard-
just an accounting change. It's
Yeah,
not
but it's on the balance
the
sheet.
money.
It's on the balance sheet now, and if we're going for debt exclusions, it makes a difference when
I'm
we,
gonna talk for at least half an hour about my OPEB recommendation, and you can take it or not.
but yeah, there are changes accountingly that matter when you're going for debt exclusions, if I'm not mistaken.
So regardless of the standard change from 45 to 75, right, the reality of the fact is that our OPEB liability right now is $35 million. And as your CFO, my recommendation is that we start to do something about it, right? So I've spent hundreds of hours over the last 5 months to put together a recommendation for you guys to consider, right? It's multifaceted. It talks about adopting the statute. It talks about engaging with an advisor that we've kind of vetted through a very detailed process. And it talks about, you know, adopting or agreeing with a funding schedule that will take us from 2019 to 2049, when none of us will be involved in this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also important to note that even though these are added expenses over, excuse me, level services, you know, in regards to the towns and accepting of this budget, proposed budget, that, you know, these were asked specifically from, you know, at least the town of Hamilton as two priorities to add to our budget this year,
And
so.
was one of those.
Excuse me. So while we are sort of the ones who have to bear the bad news of what the actual cost of this is, you know, to say that, you know, it's coming in blind, it isn't necessarily true, because, you know, it was asked to be made a priority and something to at least consider moving forward.
I mean, OPEB's a reality for every
Right.
municipal entity, right? So, it's, from my perspective, it's my advice for you to begin to deal with it. You can follow my advice and fund it so that in the end, you know, we funded 100% of our liability come 2049, or you can not accept the recommendation, or do something different than what the recommendation is.
There was a conversation at this year's MASC conference about regional districts and the OPEB liability and where it sits. And it was quite interesting because the people from Mass DOR were like, no, it's a regional problem, and it's only a regional problem. But it's a municipal problem and a regional problem. It's not a normal school district problem.
No, because normal school districts are considered
municipalities.
Exactly.
We're not. We're kind of an autonomous,
Entity.
municipal entity that has to deal with all similar issues that cities and towns have to, like OPEB.
And so yeah, it was just, I don't know, and it's a thing we got to deal with, whether we like it or not.
I think, just to sort of try and get back on track, again, that, this is something that's been spoken about here at some level and, within the different town boards. And what this proposed budget, or this recommended budget actually does is actually start to show people what these numbers really look like in reality, right? So taking it in, and just from side conversations, these numbers aren't even reality, so.
That 250 is a start, doesn't
Right.
get us there.
Right.
Even to, there's $34 million that we need to fund in
Right.
3 years.
So an advanced look into my presentation on the second. So so you get $35 million liability, right? It has to be funded 30 years. So the future liability is in hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So the funding strategy recommendation kind of goes like this. It's $250K a year, increasing by $250K for 5 years to $1.25 million 5 years from now, for 20 years. Then we take the $1.55 million that at the time will be depositing into the Essex Pension Fund. That becomes fully funded. We take that $1.55 million and we reallocate that into the OPEB fund for 10 years. So for 10 years, you'll be contributing $1.28 million. And the end result of that, at a discount rate of 5.5%, has your $35 million current liability funded at 100% in 2049. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about huge numbers. So if we accept the recommendation, but we ratchet it back to 10 or 15 grand a year,
It's just going to create more.
you're not going to even touch the tip of the iceberg.
But
So let's have that conversation on the second. Lots of detail.
On
But
that
that's what
OPEB,
we're
where's
looking
it
at.
We pay
cited?
that obligation every year in our annual budget.
Say again?
We pay that
No, we pay
every
as we
year
go.
in our annual budget, and we pay as we go. So now we're paying as we go, and we're paying as the people in the future should pay as they go. So it seems to me to be
That's a
not,
scary concept that you just.
well,
If that's what you, if that's
it's
what the community
worked
decides
for
to
the
do, that's
last
not my
400
recommendation,
years.
but we can have that conversation. I think that's a very different, that's a very dangerous approach.
You were talking about 35 million for OPEB. Where is that cited that we should be?
We're going to get some
So
auditors
all of that
report.
information's going to be presented on the second. So
Okay.
if we could defer the
Okay,
conversation
sure.
until the second,
Yep.
that would be great.
And when will we have that information to read?
We'll have it tomorrow by noon,
Okay.
before I leave for vacation.
You're not working Christmas?
Merry Christmas. All right. So at our next meeting, we'll talk about, we've already talked about all this stuff. So school resource officer recommendation, the two chiefs are coming. Stacy will come and talk at length about out-of-district placements and tuition costs. I'll go through the detailed OPEB fund recommendation. And then it would be great if we could talk about that updated capital improvement list. And it's probably an opportune time for the school committee capital planning subcommittee to
Yep.
make a recommendation to the committee. That's in their charge. So I think during the budget process, it's probably makes sense for that group to kind of lead a conversation about that. And then, as we talked about, on the schedule is to adopt a tentative budget.
question, is the admin office open during December break? Because this is now getting us with having to post a meeting. I mean, we had a recommendation from the last, there isn't updated, but still, if we were to talk about new things going on, it's going to be hard to meet next week or within the time to post the meeting.
That's up to you, I don't know.
So I'm just saying, is admin building open next week?
The admin building's open on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
And Donna or someone's available to post meetings?
Donna's in on Monday, and I believe she is in on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay, and then here's our, the calendar.
I know she is, because we actually have to post January 2nd.
Right.
We have to post it because of the New Year's Tuesday. She's on Friday.
So here's our calendar. So we're here. Budget recommendation presented to the school committee, and then we start back up again on January 2nd. My materials will be in the Dropbox for you guys to look at, beginning again tomorrow by noontime-ish. Stacy's will be in by the following Friday, which is the normal kind of targeted deadline that we've all agreed to. And we'll go from there and follow the cycle until the town meeting on April 6th. So in your packet is a copy of the updated capital project list. We're not going to go over that tonight, but I did want to give you close to a month's advance viewing of that information by providing it last Friday to you guys. Questions? Good?
Thanks.
Thanks.
Go spread the good word.
Come back with questions if you have some.
Yeah, feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions.
Absolutely.
Have a happy holiday. It's the fun stuff. All right. Now we're looking at the 1920 and 2021 calendars, H1 and H2. Need a beer after budget presentations.
First question, did we count the days, just to make sure, since we had an issue in the past?
Good.
So is that why the calendar for this year was changed?
Calendar for this year.
Because we approved a calendar on December the 1st of 2016, which is different than the one that's posted online.
How?
Yeah, I'd have to
The
go-
last day of school moved back a day. The day before Labor Day changed from being a holiday to being a vacation day. The day after Thanksgiving moved from being a vacation day to a holiday. The day of the 24th, so Christmas Eve, moved from being whatever, a no school day to a vacation day. And the Patriots' Day moved from being a vacation day to being a holiday. And then the last day of school moved back from being on the 12th to being on the 13th.
I'm gonna voice the objection I have to starting before Labor Day that I voice every year. It's 2 days, and where absences now actually make a difference. I voice the objection of starting before Labor Day that I voice every year.
I can't hear her either.
I can't hear a word you're saying.
I said I said I'm going to object to the starting before Labor Day that I do every year because it's 2 days, and I personally don't think there's a difference, as I've done both. I have started after Labor Day and I've started before Labor Day, and the only thing starting before Labor Day does is put me in a car a lot over a couple days, and where absences now make a difference in our accountability system, I suggest that we start after Labor Day. It's the same
Well-
suggestion I make every year.
Well, I do have to say, with sports, they've already started, so, which is, I want to say 35% of our students are doing a sport, so 35%. And I have to say, with weather, whatnot, we have gone into binds. We've had to cancel a vacation.
Well, that's been a while ago, but.
It's been a while, but, I just think that we need to keep the days, we only have minimal days since we get out so late as it is in June, and you can't go past June 30th.
So I guess, my question about the changes in the calendar weren't answered.
No, but I mean,
Do
as
we-
we saw this
So
year.
it sounds like the only significant change in the calendar, based on technicalities, is the last day of school, from what I heard you rattle off.
That, and then so a holiday is paid to non-union workers, whereas a vacation day, if they wanted to have it off, they would have to take it off. So there was, I think, one additional holiday added or substituted for a vacation day, so. But, the school committee is the one who's supposed to set the calendar, so I'm just curious as to how the calendar got changed without that.
We're looking at the 1920.
No, I don't.
No, that was
Yeah, I think so.
1819.
The one-
She's talking about
Definitely
1819.
Not prepared to talk about that, and on the agenda item.
So I looked at Masco's calendar, because I had remembered this from many, many years ago when I had little kids. Seeing it, they actually on their calendar designate some time periods off as being no homework times. And as someone who's coming into the upcoming vacation knowing that my children have homework assigned to them, I'm curious if the committee is interested in looking at that.
Actually, I believe the high school principal has declared the vacation week as a no homework week.
That's
Lauren, you
nice,
can-
but.
you can
Yes,
confirm
that has just
Nice,
changed.
but not true.
So it has changed. I heard the same thing, and the only thing where it's not changed was AP.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just AP classes can have homework.
So that's usually seniors.
Or juniors.
Or people
Yes.
who want to take AP classes.
Yeah, usually there's no room for sophomores, barely juniors to take AP.
Or people make assignments and they don't make it the first day back, it's due the second day back.
Okay.
So you kind of have to do it over the
Yep.
vacation.
So we're actually looking at the 1920, 2021 calendars.
Right, so
Well,
my
this
question
has
is,
to going forward on these
do we want
calendars.
to, on these calendars, designate some times as being no homework, holidays? And if the answer is no, then the answer is no.
So I
would
question
think
whether or
that-
not that's an purview.
I would think that would be a policy issue.
Right. So
Okay.
I
If you
don't
want to
think
set a
that,
policy to do that, then that would be the vehicle for it.
Okay.
Can you bring that up to policy then?
So I would propose in 2019 that the parent-teacher conferences be held on October 31st and November 5th, or on October 31st and November 7th. We
Why
did that a
would
couple
you
years
hold
ago,
the
where we put the
parent-teacher
parent-teacher
conference on the
conference on
31st?
Halloween, and it kind of seemed, I don't know if it was helpful or not, but it seemed well-received.
As a
What's the
parent of
what's
an
the
elementary,
significant
two
difference of moving
elementary
of the
school
day, though?
students, I wouldn't want to do parent-teacher on October
Yeah,
31st. I
we
gotta be
we actually
honest.
asked the elementary principals about that, and they came down with those
Okay.
dates for parent-teacher conferences.
Yeah,
They
that's 'cause-
felt it was best to stay off at Thursdays.
That's fine. I just saying last time we moved it
And so for Halloween.
onto a Halloween, and that's what we did.
As I said, the recommendation from the elementary principals was for those 2 days specifically to be early release for parent-teacher conferences. We also actually used the 30th and the 6th on the Wednesdays for those too. So,
I'm sorry, what?
so
There's
the-
carryover of
Right.
parent-teacher conferences on
we don't
the
get them all done
Wednesdays.
on those 2 days that we have designated as parent-teacher conferences.
Right.
So we use the Wednesday early release time
Yep.
to do conferences as well. So keeping them together was something the elementary principals thought was important. But then they looked at the staying off the Halloween, so they went to the 29th, Tuesdays.
Curious why the calendar changed. So this year, going into December break, it's a full day on Friday, whereas the next 2 years are early release. And in the past, we had early release going into
We talked
December
about that
vac.
the last time when we voted it, that we were going to do that.
Early release?
No, that we weren't going to do it, that we were going to do it a whole day. And so, yeah, that, I have the
So
same
now
question.
so now
why
it's going
early release
back.
next year?
Yeah.
You can do whatever. If you want to move to a full day, that's fine.
Lauren's like, what?
Yeah, generally I heard that traditionally it was always an early release, but it doesn't have to be.
I don't know why you would make it a full day.
I don't know why you'd
One way or
make
the
it a
other.
full day either. I mean,
The day counts.
I-
Can we
Counts.
change this
Early
Friday?
release counts.
Yes,
I
we
mean,
can.
given that
Can we? Can we
given that
move it?
attendance is now a thing,
Buses.
I mean, making it a full day makes people more likely to show up. But short
That
of
is
that,
true. If it was a half day, my kids would not be going this Friday, but it's a full day, so they are.
yeah, and I mean,
We can't orchestrate transportation changes at this point.
No, not for Friday.
no, but I mean,
No, I'm not, no, we're not going to, but I'm saying, for next year,
Or childcare. Thank
Do
you.
we wanna
Keep the
have-
kids in school this week.
Full days.
I mean, it's the 20th of December,
It's up
that
to
would
the
be
committee.
the early release day. It's not like it's the 23rd, it's the 20th. It's like pretty
Yeah.
early,
Is that-
so. It's up to you guys.
See, like on the 20th through 21st, the 23rd is early release. And then they have
Well, that makes
24th and
sense.
25th off.
That makes sense.
So do we want a half day before Christmas or not?
I don't think it makes sense next year, but
I don't really think it makes a whole lot of sense, because if you have an early release day, you're gonna get a larger population that's absent. And that's now a thing.
I think on a Wednesday, yes, in 2020, but I don't
yeah,
think on a
2020
Friday.
totally makes sense, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
So I move that we eliminate the early release day from December of 2019.
You won't be there. It doesn't matter.
We're so unpopular right now, don't you dare tell. You stuck up for it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Wait, what's the motion? I didn't even hear the motion.
We
Yeah.
make the December 20th of 2019 a full day.
It's been moved and seconded.
I'm sorry.
So
There
on
was
that,
so much
right there,
crosstalk, I missed
that
it.
one,
Just on this
yes,
year.
that one, they want to make it a full day instead of early release.
Is that Peter?
Yep.
All those in favor? 1, 2,
3, 4.
3, 4.
Okay.
Opposed?
All right.
Or the sides of remember, tell the kids who voted yes and who voted no tomorrow.
I'm on Facebook. I did it today.
Two
I'm on
gymnasts are
Facebook.
still after you.
All right. Does the rest of the
Okay.
calendar look good?
Well, now my question is, on religious observations, I'm curious, well, I guess it doesn't matter because we have the day off. Okay,
Right.
no, I'm good on that.
It's actually part of the policy on religious observations that we notify what the.
Yes, no, I know why they're there, but the reason Good Friday isn't there is because
it's already a
it
day
doesn't
off.
start on the day before, it's,
Right.
yeah. And they would have a weekend to do it, so they wouldn't be obligated
Yep.
to do it on that day.
When is
Are we okay to accept?
It'd be the 17th.
Why is good
No.
off?
Any
Wait,
other
what-
questions?
Friday off.
Because
because we've had traditionally low attendance.
And teachers sometimes
And
are.
teachers
Yep.
has been a problem.
Janice, do you need to make a formal motion to move?
Friday,
Friday?
the Friday before Christmas vacation is not gonna be.
Right.
Yeah, I
Okay,
would.
are we all set?
To start after.
David, would you like a motion now?
What's that? Is it, do we have any other changes?
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the school calendar for 2019-20 with the exception of making December 20th a full day and do 2020 school calendar as is.
2021,
What did I say?
2020.
Oh, 2020 to 2021.
We're not going to discuss this one separately?
Oh, I thought,
So I did have a question about that. Why are the teacher work days like the whole week before school starts?
Good Friday's off.
So this was a change that we looked at because we picked up 2 days at the end of the year, which kept us from going into June 28th with day 185. So the idea was put the teacher workdays that week of August 24th. Kids still start on August 31st, which has generally been around where we've been starting pretty consistently. So we just started the kids on a Monday. We'd have the teachers come back on Tuesday and Wednesday of the week before.
So the kids are actually going to come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
No, the kids are going to start
On Monday?
the 31st of August.
So
SR.
and why is
SR.
that?
So they're
Because
gonna-
of
Students return.
is it the way the school,
It's, well, when you get back to the other end,
yeah, I know.
if you normally, our normal practice is the teachers come back on a Monday, they have a full in-service day on a Tuesday, the kids start on Wednesday, so that would bump us 2 days further with day 185, which would stop us at
Oh, it's because Labor
June
Day's so
28th.
late.
Labor Day's late.
Okay,
So it's still bringing the kids back to school August 31st, which is about where we're doing. I mean, even in
Yep.
in the 2019 calendar, it's August 28th. It's actually earlier.
Yeah.
But
it's just
the
going
way the
back to that
calendar-
counting those days
Yeah,
again.
just counting
And
the days
Labor
to get
Day
to
late.
185 and trying to stay out of that last week in June the best we can.
So is your orientation day going to be Wednesday, the?
Probably. Yes,
What is that?
26th.
26th?
yes. That would be the idea.
I
Yeah,
think that would be
it says it
helpful
right
to-
there.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
You can note that.
Okay, so do you want me to amend, or are you okay with what I said? There is no,
There's no,
Change.
it just,
Any other changes on the 2021 calendar?
so I just need a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Unanimous.
So we just have that one change. On December,
Oh, that one. I thought you
full
meant
day.
on this one.
No.
All right, so next up is setting the superintendent's salary for 2018, 2019, which we actually discussed.
We have to revote that in open session.
So, do we still have that? Remember the motion, Jean?
no, but Mahala could read it back to you from the notes,
Yeah,
Yep.
you can
from
if
the
you want.
minutes, if you wanted. I said, Mahala could bring it back to you from the minutes if you wanted. Or, oh, you've got the
You want me
numbers,
to just
so
make
it
it-
doesn't
just
matter.
make- Do you just want me to make another motion?
Yeah, because we have to vote in open session now.
Okay, so regarding the superintendent's salary for 2018, 2019, I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District increase Dr. Harvey's salary to $188,562.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? 6-4, 1 abstention. All right, now time for the warrant for the school committee nomination papers. Excuse me. All right, like we were discussing earlier, we have 3 spots for school committee elections this year, sorry. And what is this process?
So this is part of the regional agreement that says we have to post notice at least a week in advance of the availability of nomination papers. And so to be able to get us, right now, to get this ready for the election, we have to have the papers available on January 11th, so we have to post this, we have to advertise this on the 4th. So this is the last meeting that we have available to just approve this warrant going out to general circulation, an advertisement, basically.
Okay, so what's the protocol normally? Just
So, yeah, I have the warrant here that is, as long as the committee approves it, then I'm gonna pass it around for everybody to sign it. And then we would post basically the language in this document. We would have it advertised in the Citizen.
Okay, is there a
Chronicle, sorry.
standardized language?
Yeah, pretty much.
We don't, does anyone want to?
Yep. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee post the warrant for election of members of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee pursuant to Section 1D of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District Agreement to post, I forget what date, and nomination papers will be available as of January 11th, 2019 at the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District offices at 5 School Street in Wenham.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
Sign it.
All right, now reporting on student handbook changes.
Okay. Thanks. So this is part of the new school committee policy on student and staff handbooks, I believe it was called. Rules pertaining to staff and student handbooks, policy C-3013. Here's a list of the changes to the school handbooks for the 18-19 school year. So for elementary schools, there really were no substantive changes to their handbooks. Miles River Middle School made changes to their handbook. They updated their cell phone acceptable use guidelines. They actually added a preamble about the use of cell phones in their school. And there's on a second offense, a parent will need to pick up the student's phone that's been confiscated, and they need to pick that up in the main office. They also have a separate sheet with this information about the new cell phone use guidelines that were sent home with the handbook sign-off form. So students and parents both sign off to show that they understood the change. It was also explained to students during the first day of school during their orientations. Under report cards and honor roll, there was language added around the violations to state violations of the academic integrity policy may result in removal for honor roll status. I didn't put this in my report, but there was actually also language added around giving teachers the option of having students redo the assignment or to do a different assignment in an after-school setting. And then the violation steps, as I said, for the academically integrity policy were updated there. In the high school, they made several changes to the handbook. First off, they added language in the health services section related to the mandatory health screenings for students and the process for opting out. They also revised the language around dispensing medication to students. There was language added around credit recovery, and it was the information around students, allowing students to recover credits lost due to failure through EduSiri, an online education program. So it runs sort of like summer school, but we'll use an online program to do that. They also added language outlining some of the procedural protections for students with disabilities who are subject to school discipline. And they also added an Appendix H, which outlined the Seal of Biliteracy Diploma endorsement that we talked about last spring. So those are the changes for the middle school and high school handbooks this year.
And was there any changes to I'm looking here and I'm not even seeing what the disciplinary actions are for vaping. Like, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing like illegal drug use, which I guess if you're under 18 it would be illegal, but it's not really talking about that in the policy.
I haven't, they didn't notify me of any changes around vaping. I mean, I think they still consider vapes to be a tobacco product, or
Yeah, I'm not seeing that in here either, like discipline for that either.
I would imagine it would be.
So,
Yeah, I asked the principals for a summary of their changes, so
Yeah.
that wasn't.
Yeah, because I heard
Maybe it
that
wasn't something I did.
assistant principal at the high school was talking about those changes.
yeah, I know, and I know what they are, and I know that we've talked about them here, but I couldn't even find where they were in the handbook now, so I didn't know. Okay. And then on the biliteracy one, at our meeting, I asked if we needed a vote, and the answer was no, and that Salem hadn't voted, but when I went back and I looked, Salem did actually vote that by their school committee, and the statement was made to me that if this is something that's going on the diploma, which is issued by the school committee, that actually should be voted on. And I was curious if those regulations had come out since the time of that bill.
I haven't seen anything new on the regulations,
Okay, so those haven't come out yet.
not that I know of.
As it relates to medication, inhalers? Okay.
Yep,
Yes.
that's that was in a,
Why don't you ask?
Yes, Denise, asthma medicines, diabetes medicines and supplies, pancreatic enzymes, and EpiPens are special circumstances that students may carry with written permission
Thank you.
from their parents.
May I ask a very quick question? Who makes the determination whether academic integrity was violated? Is it committee, is it
No, that's
teacher? Is it
That's usually done by the teacher, would make that determination. I would expect.
and so this credit recovery means that basically somebody failed a class, so they would be
Online summer school.
ineligible to graduate because they would not have the appropriate credits that they would need. So they're going to replace their credits through this program, whereas before we were providing summer school?
We weren't providing summer school, we didn't run it in-house, but students could go attend any local summer schools for credit recovery.
Oh, okay.
But the language, any student who fails a course, semester course, will be expected to make up the course using Educare credit recovery, which is managed by the regional high school, before taking the next course in the sequence. Students who do not make up a failed course before the next school year will be rescheduled for the previously failed course before moving on to the next course in any sequence. For example, if a student fails English 10, the student must make up the credit before the start of the 11th grade.
Mike, what is the criteria for honor roll and high honors?
Yeah, that's not what, so, but can I come back to this?
Something
Is
I
this,
was looking at. It should
is
be in the
this
handbook.
EduSer or whatever, is this something that they would be paying for or we're paying for?
All A's is high honors?
Usually
A's and B's
Usually
is
for a summer school
honors?
course, it's at the student's own expense.
So this is something they're paying, we're providing it, but they're paying for it.
I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to
Okay.
find out. Doesn't say in the language here.
Mike, is the academic integrity policy a policy of the school committee, or
No, that's a student discipline policy.
what's included in?
Well, it looks, that's actually outlined in the handbook already.
Yeah, it's academic dishonesty is really what they're looking at.
It's basically plagiarism.
Just limited to plagiarism, or?
It's not limited at all. I don't have the.
Cheating, avoiding deadlines and assessments, and falsifying student records.
Is the word policy appropriately used?
Probably not. So unfortunately, yeah,
I
there's
don't say
people
that
use
jokingly,
policy
but
and
Yeah,
change
no.
it all the
policies that
time.
exist are the policies of the committee.
Right.
So everything that comes out of my office in terms of,
Should be procedure
is
or.
the word procedure, not the word policy? 'Cause
It's actually, the title, it's, academic integrity policy is what it says.
You know what I mean, right?
Right. No, I think unfortunately.
says student
unfortunately,
conduct
as
and
I'm-
disciplinary
as I'm going
policies.
through, yeah, as I'm going through these handbooks, the word policy is used a lot of
Okay.
places. It really is not official school committee policy.
Why don't we make a note that that's something that should be,
Yeah, it was something I know I'd even had a discussion with Craig Genualdo about it.
Okay.
The athletic handbook started out as the athletic policies, and it was
Right.
like,
We've
not
changed that
policies.
since.
Yeah, so, something to look at.
Wednesday?
Sounds like it.
Yes, and it's
Right, it's not school committee policy.
Getting late.
so. All right, so we have to vote this in, vote these changes in?
No,
or how
it's,
does that-
It's an
so
update.
it's, I was just, the policy says I need to make a report on the
Yeah.
changes. That's really all that
Okay.
it is. So it's for informational purposes.
No, and I think that, you know,
The school councils review and approve these
right,
academic, or the disciplinary policies,
but
so.
I think definitely take the notes on the policy.
Versus guidelines is
Yeah.
something that, yeah.
procedure guidelines.
I'm in the process of reading both books cover to cover, which is
Riveting.
mind-numbing, yeah. So I'll make sure I get that in there.
Did you have something else that
Did you
you
have
should
that
be
done by
looking
the end
at,
of Christmas
Michelle?
break?
Well, in the
Something
past,
co-
I've sent him a
usually
very
things come
long
up.
list of things that still probably are in there, yeah. Okay.
Maybe
So, I
CC
mean,
the,
we're creating
CC,
this new system on how to do it, so let's
Yeah,
make sure
well,
we're getting
the,
it off.
the original policy was that Mike was supposed to make sure that these adhered to the school committee's policies, so.
Right.
Now it's just that he just updates us on the changes, so. And he ensures that they match the policies.
Which he was just saying that he's going over.
Yeah.
Going through the whole book.
But while he's going through everything line by line,
Oh.
let's make sure we get him
Okay.
the list.
Just trying to get the
Right. Oh, no,
contract posted and everything else, yeah.
if, I understand, but.
okay, should we
while you're
move
doing it,
on?
let's
It's
move on.
almost,
When I get a
Can we
dead
move on to
arm, I-
donations?
David, can we move on to donations? I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the girls' basketball boosters donation for a .5 assistant in the sum of $1,400.
Second.
All those in favor?
Unanimous? Sorry. I move that we, thank you, girls' basketball boosters. And then also for girls' basketball, and thank you to the Comparado family for the donation of $600 to go towards the shooter warm-up shirts.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, Comparado family.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the Friends of Winthrop
Say anything.
donation of $310 for bus transportation to the Christmas Carol.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, Friends of Winthrop.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the Fine Arts Auction winner Kurt Alexander $2,500.
Sure what that is, but I'll,
It's a fine arts auction item.
so we're getting something?
Are we getting something, or are we
They
giving them 25?
donated an auction item that was worth about 20, I think they donated one, right?
So we didn't get the money, or
I think it
did
was-
we?
Yeah, it was like a condo in Florida. Somebody donated to the harvest auction.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
Second. I didn't win it, though.
Right.
All those in favor?
Congratulations, Kurt Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept from the hockey boosters $2,000 to help defray the cost of user fees.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you to hockey boosters. Okay, quickly, moving on to committee reports. Report on the MASC conference?
Given the hour, I will make this brief. The conference was very good. We heard from a lot of people. The conference topics ranged. Some of the ones I went to included new start times and how the towns in the Cape were able to invert their elementary schools and their high schools. So their elementary schools now start at 7:35. Out there, and their high schoolers now start closer to 9 o'clock. And they found all sorts of goodness out of it, and a few bumps in the road, but they've worked it all out, and they're finding it to be quite a good success. on all fronts. And went to a class on the accountability system and how it was supposed to work by the guy who invented it and the guy who invented the levels, which was also quite informative, and I have all of that material that I will drop in a Dropbox at some point this weekend. I heard a presentation about the new Beverly Elementary School and what they're doing and how they're doing new stuff, and with glass and maker spaces and really working towards that 21st century goal. And I went to a general session on the future of MCAS and asked some really important questions about the upcoming thoughts on history MCAS and whether that was going to be actual history or an actual civics-based MCAS, like who's your governor, who's the, who the representatives, and founding understanding of why it's important to be an engaged voting citizen by the time you leave high school, as you will be a voting age citizen. There are quite a few other very interesting topics, but, given the hour, I won't go into them.
So we sent you as our representative to vote on several resolutions. Do you have the outcome of those votes?
I do. They were exactly the way we thought they would go. I don't have them right offhand, but they, mostly without objection, they went through, except for there were a couple there was one on transgender that got a little ugly in the discussion, and there was one more.
Did
that I don't have on.
Did it pass or not pass?
Did it pass or no?
It didn't pass because they kept amending it on the floor.
Okay.
But and by the end of it, it no longer made any sense.
It's actually on their website.
Okay.
There's a 2018 final report on resolutions on the front page of the MASC website. I know I'd read it recently.
All right. Great. Thank you, Janice. Now,
I'd like to table the capital planning, finance, and turf since there's been some updates as of tonight's meeting, and that we should discuss for the next meeting, and table it for next meeting.
Table it until next meeting, you mean?
Table until next meeting.
So, I think we have.
Just pass it.
Right. All right. Anything from the negotiations committee? No. So, anything from the policy committee?
I guess we had asked Mike about checking with the MASC on what their status was, and we haven't heard anything on that.
I haven't heard anything back. I sent them all of our materials at the end of November, I want to say.
Yeah, they have a signed contract.
They have
made the
signed
first payment,
contracts,
right.
but then I actually
Had to get
downloaded
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of our policy documents that we had online into Microsoft Word documents and
Yeah.
emailed them to Mike Gilbert, I want to say November 30th, and I haven't heard anything back. And I
Do we know
Mike-
who's going
I know
to
Mike's
be
retiring,
working with
so-
us now? I think his retirement is like
He had said Dor-
imminent.
He had said Dorothy Presser was picking it up for him,
Okay.
so
Is Dorothy also now our new representative?
I believe so.
Is she?
Yeah, because she's local. She's going to take the North Shore.
So, that's what it is.
Convenient for her.
So, all right. Topic for next meeting. The only thing I wanted to add was the add a vote for the biliteracy diploma. Let's just get that. And I thought there was one more thing.
Biliteracy.
Is there,
I had thought about something else, but then I can't find my notes.
Mike, is there any way you can send us, the school committee, some information, just whether redacted or not, just some of the cases in the last couple of years for special out of district, the redacted, to just get some information to try and figure out, look at some of what's going on?
I won't have them for next meeting. We're in the process of working on those, but we won't have them by the 2nd.
Okay.
But Stacy's gonna do an aggregate breakdown of those.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So, for redacted copies of out-of-district placements.
What, settlement agreements, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I couldn't hear.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, it's weird in here tonight for some reason.
All right,
I move that we adjourn at 10:03.
Second.
all those in favor?